the stars be with you.
All right, I am so happy to welcome this week's guest, Shelby Wentz. Thank you so much for being here.
For having me on.
Woo! And Shelby and I have known each other for a while, I think. She's a fellow San Diegan here, and we're in the music scene. She's also a fellow singer and bass player. You know, we got to give it up for us women behind the bass and the mic. But yeah, Shelby, tell us a little bit about yourself before we get started.
So I'm Shelby. I love reintroducing myself after people say that. Yeah, I live in San Diego. I've been here for most of my life, except for a short little stint that I lived in Portland for a little while, just like 6 months or so. And I was born in Hawaii, actually.
Oh.
But I've been here most of my life. I play music, I do art. I most recently got into doing resin things, working with epoxy resin. I go-go dance. That's a new thing, started this year.
Yeah.
But yeah, I do a lot of different things. I work full-time at Planned Parenthood, in our local affiliate. So besides working full-time, I have a lot of side things that I do, singing in the band, making things with resin. So I keep myself extremely busy, and I'm a cat mom. So my 2 cats, and I am married.
Yes, and I'm assuming you keep yourself very busy because we have a double Virgo here. We got a Virgo sun and moon, so Shelby's on the go, I'm sure.
Yes, I'm constantly holding myself to a ridiculous standard of needing to produce things and make things and work hard, and I have a hard time giving myself a break.
Yeah, that happens with Virgo energy. I have Saturn in Virgo, and that is Saturn will whip that whip. Yeah, we'll whip that whip basically, and then it won't stop until it's perfect. Otherwise, I can't rest. So that fits very well into, you know, being a musician and the you know, even the crafts and the epoxy stuff. Because I've seen you've been doing that recently. You have like little keychains that have like letters and stuff in them.
Yeah, I have a whole bunch of different molds, and basically I just use the resin to make, what I've been doing the most of is little hearts and stuff like that. You can make them into keychains or pins, and earrings. I'm doing a whole bunch of stuff, but it's so fun to work with resin because it's like kind of perfect for a Virgo in that when you have to mix it very exact, and then once you mix it and it starts the chemical reaction, you have pretty much 30 minutes, almost 30 to 40 minutes working time before it becomes this like gluey mess that you can't work with at all. So in the Virgo way, it's like very structured, where it's like a craft that has a start and a stop time, and you really have to be prepared before you go, because you can't just mix it and then be like, okay, let me get my colors together. So it's kind of exhilarating while you're working with it, because you only have so much time to do it.
Yeah, I tried doing resin about a decade ago, and I was all excited about it. I got a kit, brought it all out. I was trying to do like a bracelet. Oh, that did not go well. It did not pan out for me. But so when I see things like that, you know, I understand, you know, how precise that it is to do. You know, there's work that goes into that. But
yeah.
But they're really cute. They have like, you have fun messages that you have, and like empowering messages, right?
Yeah, I'm trying. So initially with the little alphabet beads and stuff, I was just doing fun, cutesy stuff. And then I was realizing I really wanted to do more fun stuff and bold stuff that was just, I don't know, a little bit more, like I started doing hearts that just say, fuck it, or most popular one, don't fuck it up, or
how Virgo is that?
What?
How Virgo is that? Don't fuck it up.
Bitch, or like, I think I have one that says whore, just stuff that's like kind of reclaiming some of those words that were once people would use, you know, well, people still use as insults, and just kind of reclaiming and saying, if you want to call yourself a bitch, and say, yeah, I'm a bitch, and own it. But yeah. Bitch in like the sense of just being a bad bitch, you know, getting shit done, being like just owning yourself. That's kind of what I was now I'm starting to do more of, and people seem to really enjoy those ones. a lot.
Yeah, I thought it was fun, especially the format of them, because you know it's a heart, it's glittery, it's fun, and then it's like fuck it, and I'm like, whoa.
Yes,
I
totally.
hear you.
Yeah.
Oh, I love it. So, well, we're going to be talking, we have like a haphazard topic here because we're just talking today, basically. There's a lot going on in the stars for this week, but most notably Venus squaring Mars, which has been a hot topic as Venus is now retrograde and we in Scorpio. And a lot of murky subjects are coming up to the surface. And I just wanted to kind of pick Shelby's brain, especially since she's been in a role at Planned Parenthood for a very long time. And I'm sure you see some of those, see a lot of things come through your, through your viewpoint. So I titling it Finding Justice, Merging the Whole. Because we're noticing these two sides of things. We're going to be talking about some of the binary stuff later, gender binary stuff. But essentially, we're finding that, you know, these things don't fit into either side. It's kind of meeting in the middle here. So, Shelby, tell us a little bit about your role at Planned Parenthood and what it is you do, and we'll go from there.
So just to give you a little history of my time at Planned Parenthood, so I've actually been working there for about 12 and a half years now. I spent the first 8.5 years or so working in the health center, so direct patient care. So I was working at patients, seeing them, you know, doing all their vitals, doing STI testing, counseling. So it was very hands-on in the clinic, hustle bustle. And then I believe I moved to administration, I think about 4 years ago. I don't know if all that math is working out, but I've been in administration for a little while, and so now I actually work in the operations department. So essentially, the main bulk of what I do is managing programs and projects that are related to the health centers. So like a pretty straightforward example would be like we have HIV medications HIV preventing medications, and so one of my programs is PrEP and PEP. So basically, I manage those programs, so we try to make it as easy as possible for patients to come in and get evaluated to see if they're good candidates for the PrEP or PEP medication. And then I've created like tools and resources to make that simple for patients and our staff as well, and then ensuring that the patient can leave the clinic and then get their medications as soon as possible after seeing us. So that's kind of my pet project because I'm really passionate about that one in particular. So yeah, most of my work is centered around health center support projects and things.
Yeah, and when you had mentioned about, you know, the preventative HIV medicine, I mean, I had never heard of anything like that. Is this relatively new, or is it?
We started doing it at our affiliate probably 3 years ago or more. So, I mean, it's relatively new, I think, for us, and also just in San Diego County. I mean, I can't give you the exact date of when it started rolling out, people carrying the medication or when the medication came about. But for us, we rolled it out a few years ago. So it is relatively new in that sense. But it's so amazing because you just think about, you know, when I was working in the clinics, which wasn't that long ago, you'd come in, you know, you get your HIV test. And if you had, say, unprotected sex the night before and you thought maybe you were at risk for having been exposed to an HIV virus, we would say, okay, well, we're going to get you tested today. It's like a baseline test, and then come back and we'll do another test to confirm that you're negative. But now we can say, oh, you had, you know, unprotected sex or a condom broke or something last night. Well, then we can actually get you the PEP medication, which can prevent HIV exposure if taken within 72 hours after having sex with someone who may have exposed to HIV. So it's kind of like the emergency pill for HIV.
For HIV.
If you think, like, you know, just 5 years ago when I was in the clinics, that wasn't even something that we had. And now it's something we can do. Is just so exciting because it's game changing for, I think, reproductive healthcare and STI prevention.
Yeah, it really is. I mean, because those are three dreaded letters, you know, for many people. And it's like almost like a sentence, to say the least. So that's wonderful that there's something out there that can help combat if you have that moment where, you know, maybe judgment wasn't what it was, or maybe fate took over and something happened, and, you know, because that's the reality of life. And now, is it a one-time treatment, or is it something much like the Plan B pill?
So PEP, which is post-exposure prophylaxis, I'm going to give you the acronym explanation. That's a one-time thing for that specific incident, if you want to call it that. But PrEP, which I like, it's such a convenient acronym because PrEP is like you're preparing. So PrEP, which is pre-exposure prophylaxis, is basically, it would be like you're taking a pill every day as long as you need it to prevent HIV. So say my partner is HIV positive, or maybe I have multiple partners and I'm not quite sure what their HIV status is. I might think, hey, I'm going to get on PrEP because I can take this pill every day, and then if I happen to have sex with someone who has HIV, I'm actually going to prevent myself from getting it. And it works, I want to say the statistic is like over 80, 90% or so. It's pretty high. I'm probably being on the safe side, but I think it's actually really high. If you're taking your medication every single day at the same time and taking it consistently, especially for people who have partners who are HIV positive and, you know, want to have unprotected sex with their partners and feel safe, it's amazing because now you can take this pill and you're not going to be exposed to the virus.
Yeah, that is definitely game changing for a lot of people, I assume, you know, and I'm surprised that I mean, not that I'm seeking it or anything, but you would think that, especially it being out for a couple of years now, that somehow it would have come across my ears at some point. So I'm wondering how many people are like me that are like, oh, I didn't even know that existed.
One thing I was going to note too is I think it's a little unfortunate that it has been branded so early on as for just men. Like all of the brochures I've seen and billboards are usually like it shows like a gay couple, like two men smiling or something, and it says something about PrEP or PEP. And I think that's just unfortunate because it just started branding, just kind of excluding women from the conversation, but it totally and completely should include anyone who's at risk for HIV or has been exposed to HIV. So that's not a strict gender issue. Yeah. It's not, you know, it's not men, it's not women, it's anybody. So that's the only thing I think sometimes is unfortunate. And that's why perhaps you may not have even heard of it because it's probably not been marketed to you, you know, either with photos or with advertising or where they put the advertising. So I do think that's interesting. It was kind of like when they, the Gardasil vaccine, when they first launched Gardasil and everyone was talking about HPV prevention, it was so much pushed on women.
Yeah.
If you have a vagina, you should get the HPV vaccine. But it goes much, it's you know, they finally realized, oh, if we give the HPV vaccine to young boys, then they'll, you know, it'll prevent them from getting certain strains of HPV. So then when they have sex in the future, if they're in a heterosexual relationship with a woman, then maybe we can prevent exposure that way. So kind of adding responsibility to both
sides. Yes. Yeah. And I'm wondering if some of these things, you know, because the role between, say, going to Planned Parenthood or, you know, now that a lot of us, because my history with Planned Parenthood, especially in my 20s, like it was a godsend because, you know, there was no, you know, I didn't have health care or anything like that. And Planned Parenthood was and still is such an amazing resource. But now, you know, since I'm on, you know, a covered California plan and I'm going to my actual, you know, PCP to do these types of things, I wonder how well informed, say, the doctor I go to is versus, you know, people like yourself or, you know, the practitioners at Planned Parenthood, you know, that are just focused on this one thing, or not one thing, but, you know, reproductive health just in general. Yeah. So is that maybe a reason why I haven't heard things like this too?
Yes, I totally think so. And I'm so glad you brought that up because I think we've definitely seen a shift in our patient demographic. I mean, a lot more of our patients are coming in with insurance and choosing to come to us with their insurance if they're able to, or paying out of pocket. And so and I think the reason they're choosing us is because we really have established ourselves as the experts in this field. So sex, birth control, STIs, that's just that whole world. We really are, in my opinion, my humble opinion, the experts in that field, and a lot of things that I think a lot of primary care physicians who maybe are working, say at, whatever community clinic or, some of the big name hospitals like Sharp or Kaiser, they do so much as a primary care provider that they don't have that kind of microscopic lens on how to take care of reproductive health issues. And so I think a huge reason that people keep coming to us is because we can talk to you about, every single kind of pill you could possibly be taking to prevent pregnancy. We can also talk to you about how to prevent HIV. And then let's look at that bump that you have and we can have those conversations, and patients just feel so comfortable, much more comfortable, I think, talking to us about that than they might their doctor they see once a year for the quick, like a flu shot and, shake your hand, see you next year kind of thing.
Yeah.
So I do think that maybe people aren't getting as much specialized conversations and stuff about reproductive healthcare and what's out there. Advances in reproductive healthcare, because I think primary care physicians they're awesome. I'm so glad people have health insurance more.
Yes.
But I definitely think there's a gap in education there.
Yes, and I would agree with that for sure. But it also shows why, how important Planned Parenthood's role is, even in the medical, industry, but also in a societal role, that is being played here, and probably why people aren't so, happy about it. Some people, oh Lord.
Yeah.
Now, you also are working on something else there that has to do with a new kind of department or, something going on there, right?
So transgender care is going to be or opening our services to be more trans friendly. That is a huge thing that we are embarking upon. And it really, I say embarking because it is such a journey of just learning and just so much to learn to make sure that we are doing it right. And that's happening over the next, probably, I'd say, I don't want to give it exact, but maybe the next year. We're going to be rolling out transgender services, which is very, very exciting. There's a huge need in the community. When I went recently to a conference in Pasadena called the Gender Odyssey Conference. And we had people coming up to our group when they identified us as Planned Parenthood saying, I work in San Diego, I work at this place or that place. Can you please start offering these services, hormonal care, and realizing that there's just so many more patients than we can even take care of. And so there needs to be more community organizations offering transgender care. In a very specialized way, just as we've always done with being experts in reproductive health care, just also being another voice in the community that can actually have, open arms to the entire transgender community to come and feel safe and to talk about that transgender issues with us.
Yeah, and it seems like the right organization to kind of open its doors to, take upon that role, because it seems like it fits rather well, because essentially that's what we're talking about with Planned Parenthood is reproductive issues, and, our genitals fall in there, obviously. Those are like the main parts we're talking about for the most part. And so, we do need these resources, and that landscape is changing. I had Mars Gradiva on here, a transgender from Canada, an astrologer. We had a fabulous talk on kind of the problem with gender binary, or at least in astrology, like those old terms with Venus and Mars and how they don't quite fit. And essentially, kind of like what I named this particular topic, merging the whole, that's essentially what's going on here. Is it's not just, boys and girls, it's everything in between. And I think it's a wonderful thing because, as humans, we are not black and white. It's all gray. It's all gray up in here. Yeah. And, so what do you think? Do you think what do you think is the kind of the biggest challenge to kind of get through as you open up, these new offerings?
I think one of the biggest things early on that I think I've seen is that so many of the healthcare programs just across every kind of organization are centered around really, really gendered care. So say, for example, back in the day when I started, we just had paper charts. We just wrote everything on paper and it was in a little manila folder. But now everything's electronic, and pretty much every high quality healthcare organization is going to have electronic healthcare records. And in those systems, up until pretty recently, they didn't have, when there would be gender, there's a drop down and it has male, female, there's nothing about sexual orientation or gender identity, or just even, what you're working with. Are you a person that has a penis? Are you a person that has a vagina? Are you at risk for pregnancy? Regardless of what your gender expression is, because maybe you present yourself male presenting, but you have a vagina, and we still need to talk to you about pregnancy risk. So I think it's the industry of electronic health records is trying to catch up, I think, very quickly, and maybe rushing even a little to realizing that more and more patients, more and more people, not everyone's patient, but I think of so many things in the terms of patients. People are, saying, hey, I'm non-binary. I'm not going to define myself as male or female. I'm not on the binary spectrum. I'm non-binary or gender fluid or gender queer. And, we still we're not fully prepared as far as our technology to acknowledge that fully, so that when, your document prints out at the end of the visit, it acknowledges you as a whole person, fully who you are, what your expression is, your identity, your sexual orientation. So I think that's kind of the biggest hurdle that I saw initially, is that being able to get technology to keep up with what we're seeing culturally, and more. I think the next generation is Gen Z.
Yeah, I think yes.
And I think, I can't remember the exact statistic, but it was something along the lines of a very large amount of Gen Z people are identifying as non-binary. And I think that's awesome, because for so long, everything's been pink and blue, and, you go to the store and everything's separated in boys and girls, and why can't things just be fluid and people be able to go whichever way they like, or set somewhere in the middle? And it's been so restrictive to force people to identify as male and female. And so I think it's really exciting to find, now there's going to be a whole generation of people who are saying, you know what, no thanks, I don't want to abide by those laws, the rules of male female, which is cool.
Yeah, that great gender divide that we've managed to create over, human history. And really, it only takes like a generation or so to make some changes like that, because there's so many people are going to identify with new boxes to click, or the lack of a box to click. Because that's the thing, is like the reality is so many options are coming to the table now. And I think that's why people have a hard time, how do we approach this? So maybe if we don't approach it, kind of just get away from the binary idea to begin with, rather than having 5 million more boxes to click to kind of try to fit into a box, maybe that's.
Sorry.
No, go ahead.
Also having transgender people or non-binary people inform the work that you're doing, which is something that we're doing. We are working with consultants, because you don't want a whole group of cisgender people launching a transgender services program, because you're going to miss the mark, because you're not, there's a difference between knowing about maybe the experience of a transgender person, but versus knowing of. That's something that I think I heard at one of my conferences. Knowing of, meaning you're living that life every day of your life because you are a transgender person. And then one of the things, since you brought up checkboxes, that I wanted to mention is that really struck me when I heard this, was I think the solution for probably up until now, and continuing probably for a while, that I've seen organizations use, is having a box that says other. So maybe male, female, other. And something that really impressed upon me when I was at the transgender conference was non-binary or transgender people saying, it sucks to be othered. So you don't even get a name. You're just the other box.
It's another form of alienation in a sense.
Yeah, and really it's making you feel like, oh, well, I don't fit into your nice, tidy boxes, so now I'm just other, and I can choose to write something on the line, but why would I even want to at this point? Because now I'm just an other. I'm the alien. I'm the non-conforming person, which some people might find pride in that too. But just being othered is it's an interesting thing to consider as we go forward and are trying to make our medical records, super inclusive, is that the other box is not always the solution.
Yes. And I can see how that would be, because it's hard to be an other because at the same time, people are just trying to fit in. And if you're already at a point where, it's hard to fit in with just how you feel or the decisions you've made or what have you, I get it. There's no other. And even with, I'm not even going to go. But anyways, I want to play real quick to what you're saying and give props to Planned Parenthood for bringing in, to build the program around suggestion from people that are transgender rather than, because basically everything you said there, I can liken that to the idea of the men who have been trying to have an influence over female reproductive health care for ever and now, because it's basically the same thing to some extent, like saying I know better, it should be this way, even though I don't have a female body and I have no idea what that's like.
Right, totally. And it's even beyond suggestion. I mean, we're really, really taking this person's, it's going to be more than just one person, but guidance and advice and running everything by this person, because you really can't speak on behalf of the transgender community if you're not transgender and say, this will probably work. Like, for example, the other box, we might think, if I'm a cisgender person, which I am, identify as cisgender, I might think, oh, other makes sense because then you give someone an opportunity to write who they are. That's great. Maybe I have a real positive intention happening there. But, now I can have a transgender person actually say, yeah, it actually sucks to be othered when you've been othered your whole life. And then you go, oh, shoot. Okay. And then you're learning, which is, it's awesome.
Yeah. And I think that's basically what's going on here is that we are all learning. We are all learning right now. We're all trying to navigate this no matter, what box we were to click, because this is all new, the landscape is changing and very fast, and I'm absolutely fine with it. I'm intrigued. I'm like, oh, let's do this. Sounds new and exciting. How long do you think it's been since in Planned Parenthood that you started to see these kind of changes take place and where, where there needed to be more boxes or all this was being brought up?
I remember some of the situations that first started to come up for me when I was actually working in the health center. For a while, I worked in City Heights, and I think I started seeing probably I want to say 5 to 6 years ago, just more people coming in and saying just simple things like our family pack card, that green card that a lot of our patients qualify for to get their services covered. That application has had male and female forever. I mean, and getting the government to catch up with these changes, that's a whole nother discussion. But, we are in charge of that form. And so I just started hearing more people probably in the last 5 or 6 years who were saying, why does this form only have male, female? Can I write something else? Or, and at the time I was, I didn't know half as much as I do now, or have, had the, I've been able to go to a lot more things where I've learned more about the transgender community. But at the time, I just didn't know how to answer that question. I'm like, I don't know what's the other checkbox that you need,
Yeah.
And so those kind of questions were probably coming up, like I'd say 5 to 6 years ago, or if not a little bit further. And then also having people come in who presented, maybe their gender identity was male presenting, but asking for services like pap smears or vaginal exams, and just trying to navigate how to have those conversations without having any kind of training or education on how to talk appropriately without, offending someone, and but also and want to take care of them medically with whatever that they have. So if this person's presenting as a male but they have a vagina, then we still need to take care of their vagina.
Yeah.
Those are things that I think I started seeing just, I want to say 5 or 6 years ago. So I still feel like, again, it's pretty recent that people are self-identifying or being comfortable enough to say that, when checking in for an appointment or when in the back office with you. So yeah, I think that's probably my own timeline that I'd say I recognized a shift.
Yeah, because it's been a topic for a litc while now, but I can't remember when it shifted. So I felt like you were probably the best person to ask on that. So I applaud the work that you do and putting your energy, and it's not even just working there. You're out, you do events, and you're out there, you educate people. I've seen things in the past where you're posting and, getting it out there, and it's a much needed thing because, and why I probably want to talk about this now is Venus is in retrograde in Scorpio, because Scorpio deals with things that might be uncomfortable to talk about, or there might be murky gray area there, or it might have like kind of a more secretive nature or a taboo nature. And essentially that's what we're dealing with now. And we're also dealing with, obviously we're dealing with kind of a women's uprising that's happening now in the world. And we can clearly see that in our Ford Kavanaugh hearings. That's just one place of it. But that's the place that's really kind of blowing it up right now, I think. And so, do you have any takes on that, or just just as a woman, how you feel about all the us finally getting like a stronger voice here, or starting to have a stronger voice?
Well, this, just on a personal note, for me, this year has felt really transformative. I felt like, was it something in the air? I've had a lot of people actually tell me that I've just been putting myself out there, or like, oh, there's a lot of like, you're just doing all these things. And, this year I started go-go dancing I do it at Club Sabat, which is, I love it so much, but it's something that I probably would have never even thought that I would do just a couple years ago. That is a long story, but essentially just growing up in a really conservative household that, not by choice, religion and things being kind of forced upon me as far as how a woman should behave. And again, going back to that binary of men do this and women do that, and these very restrictive rules and thoughts about what makes a woman, what makes a man. And so going back to the go-go dancing thing, that like a woman would never, dance in front of a crowd, and it's.
Or you mean a lady would never dance in front of a crowd? A lady.
Would never do that. Or, just these silly ideas that I didn't realize, and when you talk about that murkiness, I was still carrying with me. So when I had the opportunities to start go-go dancing, all of a sudden these things are rising up in me that I didn't even think I had an issue with. And I started going, oh, is that okay for me to do that? Would a woman do, and then I'm like, what is this voice that's even talking? This is not even how I feel about any of this, but realizing like it was these things I hadn't really dealt with, these kind of things that had been taught to me from a pretty young age, and challenging that and being like, you know what? That is ridiculous. I'm shutting that down. I'm done with that part of my life that even had those seeds buried in me somewhere to think that way about myself, or shame myself and my body and what is okay and not okay based on just these concepts, archaic concepts that were kind of crammed down my throat from religion. So talking about murkiness, there's some murky water there. Bubbling up from childhood. So just this whole year for me has just been just kind of emerging and like, I want to try this thing. I'm going to step out of my comfort zone. I'm going to do that. So go-go dancing was a big thing. I started singing in our band, Forest Grove, just doing being the lead singer, whereas before I played bass and sang. So there's a little bit of hiding behind the bass for me that
I'm right there with you, girl.
if I got too nervous or just overwhelmed, or maybe when I was on stage, I could just really just focus on, okay, just play my instrument really well. And I don't need to look at the audience. I can just sing my part and go back to so removing that safety blanket in a way for me, and just having a mic in my hand and being the front person, that was definitely like transformative of having to just figure out who I wanted to be in that way.
Yeah.
I feel like I'm getting away from your original question.
No, that's okay. But there's something, I know, I totally get you on that. It is different when you play, I don't know if anyone listening out there is a musician, it is different when you take a front role with an instrument versus taking a front role without an instrument, because that instrument can be that that safety blanket, absolutely. But if you're just standing there and you just have a mic in your hand, that comes down to like body movement and feeling the moment, because you have to kind of do something with yourself. So it is very liberating. Removing the instrument, and I've only done that a couple times personally myself, and it's kind of weird at first because it started, and then you literally have to be in it. You have to be part of it. You have to let a part of yourself go so that you can find that expression. So I totally get that. But to get back to what you were saying about all these murky topics. And I think a lot of us women are going through this now, especially people that are, basically people that are in our generation and older, because we are working with these outdated, concepts essentially from a subconscious level of what we think how a woman should act, or a woman should be, or what we should be aware of, or what we should be responsible for. Because that's the thing too, is like, women have a lot of responsibilities thrown on their back. Like I saw a Facebook post earlier today where it had like a male symbol on one side and a female on the other. And the male symbol says, "Nothing, I don't think about it." And the female symbol is all, "Hold my keys as a potential weapon. Check the backseat of a car before getting in the car. Always carry a cell phone. Don't go jogging at night. Don't wear headphones while you're jogging." And it was just this long list of everything we had to be responsible for so that we didn't, get attacked or be this thing that's a vulnerable creature. And and those things live very deep within us, because that's just how society, and I think that's kind of the hardest part about all this right now for a lot of people, is that when it's that ingrained, we want to be free from it, but there's even those little impulses that just are there, So, I just wanted to say that.
It's actually, I was just going to add on to that. It's pretty interesting when you think of those are that laundry list of things that we teach women as they're growing up. And so part of the experience that I learned about from trans women is that if you're assigned male at birth, so you come out of the womb and you have a penis, instantly you will start getting taught things that are for men and how men act in the world, pretty much from probably the little blanket that they bundle you in at the hospital, if it's blue or pink, right? And so if you're a trans woman and you're starting to navigate the world of being a woman, right? But you were assigned male at birth, so maybe your whole life, maybe you didn't transition until, I don't know, after puberty or something like that. So for the bulk of maybe your childhood, you were getting messages about what it is to be a man in this world. So now that you're a trans woman, you might not be hearing those, hold your keys like a weapon, don't walk alone at night, like all those little messages that say people who are assigned female at birth, women growing up, were hearing. You didn't hear those, yet you're expected to show up like that in the world. So does that make sense?
Yeah, no, I hear what you're saying. Absolutely.
So it's so interesting how I think people are trying to politicize, there's male, female, like, oh gosh, I try to avoid the comment threads, but it's so true. We are totally adhering strictly to the binary, and it's affecting even, especially people's safety, because we're not teaching women things that just should be general knowledge, and we're not teaching men thing that should be general knowledge for just human beings. So now that if you're a trans woman, you're walking down the street, but you're not holding your keys like a weapon because you weren't taught that, because you didn't come out of the womb with a vagina. I mean, that's just crazy. It's just like general safety issues. So it's crazy, as in we're so stuck in adhering to that
yeah.
People's lives could be at risk because of things we're teaching them just based on whether they have a penis or a vagina or something.
Yeah. Well, and it's funny, Shelby, because I was thinking about this earlier today when I was reading that list. And of course, the first one was, keep your keys in your hand. And I've always kind of had a little bit of a fearless personality when it comes to stuff like that. Like, I always kind of like hold myself in a particular type of respect. And I think that has like reflected on my aura a bit, to where I am fortunate enough to say that I have not really gotten messed with, at least to this point in my life. But part of me, if it's really late at night, especially, being in a band, coming home late at night from playing a show, in the middle of the whatever, and you have to park a little farther away from your house. Even though those are the moments when my heart would start to go, start to beat faster. And I was like, oh, maybe I should do this. And I was thinking about this morning, and I wondered if that is part of a collective fear that women hold, that I don't necessarily do that every time I go from car to car, but I could just feel it. Like, I don't know. Does that make any sense? Like, that we hold a collective fear together, where even if I'm not predisposed to kind of like really protect myself in all that laundry list of ways, like a lot of women do, there are still those moments where I feel the heaviness of what could possibly happen based on my, potential weakness in a situation.
Yeah, and I think that's why when we're hearing all the stuff that's going on with the Kavanaugh hearing and all of these women coming forward, just in general, the whole Me Too movement and everything, when you're talking about that collective fear, I think that's why it's so draining.
Yeah.
To hear it, because we're not just hearing this person's story, but we're thinking about all the things that have happened to us or our friends or this collective group. And that's why I think it's so draining. So it might sound like we're being, I don't know, sensitive, or what do people like to say? We're snowflakes.
No.
Snowflakes are really pretty and beautiful. So that's especially.
No, I'm gonna go on a limb and say any woman is not a snowflake. You know how hard it is to be a woman? Come on, people. There's no snowflake here, other than the uniqueness of we're all unique, beautiful.
Unique and beauty of a snowflake, of course.
Yes, but not on the weak side. Have you checked lately that we give birth? We are the ones that give birth, and that is incredibly hard. Isn't what women have a higher tolerance to pain, right? Isn't that
I think so.
Is that a misconception, or?
I think I'm pretty sure that's based in some science, but I'm not going to confirm.
Yeah, me either. I'm not, but it would make sense. I mean, when you go through such a body brunting type of thing as birth, I would hope that we have a couple little extra things in there to help us, get past that. Oh, no, I hear you, Shelby. I groan too when I think about the hearings, but that's where we are at right now. And I'm thankful that we are. Unfortunately, we got to go through some shit to get there. But at the end of the day, I'd rather these things be coming up than us just, going through the motions of being female. But yeah.
The fear, I mean, when you just, his face is so horrible, but Kavanaugh's face, the way that he's reacting does feel like a collective anger and fear of people like him, who probably for so long have not even had their roles and masculinity and power questioned. And now we're finally getting some people to have a voice. And he looked so distressed on this like deep level. And part of me is like, oh, is this the beginning of that change that we're really starting to see, of men in power starting to see what, like, oh wait, I think our power is slipping just a little.
They're shaking in their boots a little bit.
Yeah, that was very fascinating to see, for sure.
Yeah, and then Lindsey Graham's outrage. That guy, oh my God. No comment. But I have a male friend of mine. He made a nice, eloquent post on what he had observed while watching the hearing. And one of the things he said that really sprung out to me most, and really exemplifies a lot of this Venus retrograde process, especially since Venus has to do with such things as, what we're worthy of. And he said he, as Kavanaugh, really seemed like he thinks he is entitled to that seat on the bench rather than needing to prove he is worthy of it. And I think that speaks a lot of testament to, what we're seeing here. There's this entitlement, and especially to that, that white male energy in the government. And of course, that's probably a whole nother podcast, but, I just found that very appropriate thing to say, because that's probably why he's shaking,
Right,
when you just assume that you got something.
Yeah, and that kind of leads me to something I was also thinking about, of the idea of feeling like you're worthy enough to be in a role, and that was a huge thing for me, because earlier this year in May, I actually came out on Instagram as being bisexual, and identifying as a queer person, and it took me beyond my whole life, not really knowing why I felt very different about things and experiences. But just to even make that post, I can't even tell you, I had a whole conversation in my head already, giving my own self rebuttals to why. That's probably a Virgo thing too. But
yeah,
a huge part of it was feeling like, am I allowed to say I'm queer? Am I allowed to say I'm bisexual? Maybe I'm not bi enough. Maybe I'm not queer enough to even say that I am. And people are going to call me out. And oh gosh, I had all these arguments just with myself. And it was all about that feeling of feeling like you're worthy enough, or enough of something to identify as it. And because, I am married to a man, I very easily, to just going about my day, come off as a heterosexual couple, and there's a lot of safety, there's privilege in that, I do benefit from that, and I'm acknowledging that. And I think, and when I say benefit, I just mean there's safety in appearing heterosexual in our world. There just really is, and so anyway, when I was trying to figure out how to articulate why it was important for me to come out, a huge part of it was I wanted to prove to people that I was worthy of identifying that, or yes, I'm married to a man, but that doesn't make me less of a bisexual person. Mm-hmm. And that was so hard to allow myself to do, because I was just waiting for one person to comment and say, yeah, but it doesn't matter now because you're married to a man, so you're straight. Or I was just waiting for someone to take it away from me. And I was almost coming at it in this very defensive way. And thankfully I have amazing, wonderful friends and family, and everyone was super supportive. And then just I think a week ago or so, I came out on Facebook, because on Instagram it was a smaller group and I felt safer to do that. And then I did that on Facebook. And in both situations, it was overwhelmingly positive response, but still, even now, I'm oh my gosh, but what about that one person who didn't comment or engage in the post at all? What are they thinking? They're probably thinking this, and then all these negative thoughts pour in.
Yeah. Enter the Virgo life. But that says something about, especially when this will air, we have the sun squaring Pluto, and we're dealing with, kind of power dynamics and struggles and stuff like that. And, in that moment, even though that was a huge milestone for you to be able to kind of liberate how you truly are to the public, so that you can just be I identify like this. But at the same time, even though you had that overwhelming response, there was a part of you that was allowing that power to be taken away from you by thinking that someone's going to contest that, and have a problem with that, and that their opinion or their value of worth or whatever is going to be more, stronger than yours, or hold more weight, which,
right.
And you're not the only one who does that. I do stuff like that all the time. And I'm sure many people out there and many people listening are right there with you. So for this kind of Plutonian week that we have going on, I'm going to post that, present that question. Why do we give that power away? Why do we let the potential of what others' own opinion of how we live our lives and who we are, why do we let that affect us? And how can we find an equilibrium there and a better balance that we can, be who we are, but not be so concerned of what the other, and even what the government or, more bureaucratic situation or, organizations might think of us. So.
Right. And I think that was actually something that really made me feel like this year, I don't know, it just felt like the right time for me. I mean, because this is something when Zach and I first met, in 2008, I think it was. 2008. Almost 10 years.
Wow.
It was, talking about like previous partners or, relationships. It was one of the first conversations we had, and I'm saying like 10 years later, I finally was able to actually tell other people that I identify as bisexual or that I'm a queer person. So that's a long time to be not letting a part of you be 100% on the outside.
Yeah.
Anyway, I had a point.
Well, that's actually what I was going to ask you. I was going to, there's something about this time that's going on right now where maybe if you tried to do this, 6 years ago, it just wasn't the right time. Like there's a magic to this timing right now, I think. And that is what, that's why we're talking about this. That's why yeah.
What it was.
What is it?
The timing of having someone like Trump in office. It's just like, it almost felt like if you're going to finally make a bold statement about yourself and align yourself and identify with a community like the queer community or any marginalized community, why not now when we have this government that is just so hateful? And I felt like it just dawned on me. I'm like, I just want to be proudly part of this community because, as my resin hearts say, fuck it. Like, I'm not just going to be like, oh, well, I'm married now to a man. And so I don't need to identify. I just be quiet and just be like, I'm not saying that's what my relationship is doing, but I just mean like in my head, I was saying it wasn't important to come out as a queer person because my voice didn't matter. But then I think every single voice matters right now when
Yes.
things are being so put at risk and on the line of rights being taken away. So that's when I was like, you know what, fuck it. I'm going to own my truth and I'm going to be another voice. If at least just one more voice can make a difference. Yeah.
Absolutely. No, that's great. And I think that I'm noticing that from a lot of people, whether we're talking about, gender issues or we're talking about financial inequality or we're talking about, just lack of opportunity for certain folks out there. It's just about having the voice, because we're watching certain things that almost like absurdities of society that have held a standpoint for so long, especially like a more patriarchal culture. And we're seeing this kind of last ditch effort come on. And it's like the more people like yourself that are out there, speaking their truth and their voice, that all that collective energy is going to come together to basically help, hopefully, to shift this dynamic even further than what we're seeing today. And so, yes, fuck it. So on that, I think we'll end our little segment here. Now, so Shelby, tell people where they can find you. You have a website or things going on, all that.
Yeah. So, well, the main band that I'm in now is called Forest Grove. So we are on Instagram is at Forest Grove Band. My personal Instagram is Oh Hi Shelby. It's I should do it easier to
and I will put this on my blog so you can find her.
Oh Hi Shelby on Instagram. And my personal Instagram is basically everything I do. It's my go-go dancing, it's my music, it's my resin art, it's my cats, it's my husband, it's vegan sushi. I'm also vegan, didn't mention that earlier as part of who I am. So yeah, Instagram, Oh Hi Shelby, Forest Grove Band. And then I am launching a online store for all of my resin stuff, but I actually haven't decided on a name yet, which is unfortunate timing for this because I'd love to be able to say my store. But I can't pick a name yet, so I will.
We'll get it out there. We'll get it out there through some stories or something like that when you're ready. Are you still doing your art on, do you have a website for your art or?
So I just actually looked at it the other day. It's shelbyguba.com, but I actually have not posted on that website for 2 years.
Oh, no.
I think I've been so focused on so many other things like band music stuff, and I'm still doing art. Resin is actually kind of this new phase of doing
Perfect.
art. But yeah, I'm not currently active on that website.
That's okay. Well, if you want to see something she was doing a couple years ago, they're cute. All your little designs are very cute. In perfect Virgo fashion. They're adorable. Oh my gosh. I love it, Shelby. So now if you missed any of that, I'll have it all on my own blog post, which you can find at energeticprinciples.com. And you can find me on Instagram and Facebook at Energetic Principles. And you can also find me on Patreon if you want to be supportive of this podcast or get those moon horoscopes or my weekly tarot subscription. You can do that at patreon.com/energetic principles. And if you like what you hear today, share it with a friend, spread the good word, because sharing is caring, especially in Libra season right now. And if you have nice things to say, I would love a good rating on iTunes because it really helps to get, all this out there. So, all right, Shelby. Well, thank you so much for joining me and giving an alternative voice to the podcast than what I normally talk about, because I think that what you had to share was fascinating.
Oh, thank you so much. It's really fun to do.
Woo! All right, everyone. Well, thank you for tuning in. And until next time, may the stars be with you.